It is prophesized that on November 13th, the entire UFO conversation will change. Not only after the upcoming hearing with Nancy Mace, but during it. But I wonder if you're ready. Indeed, on October 18th, journalist Jeremy Corbell spoke with NBC News' Gotti Schwartz and said the following, and I quote, "A significant transparency regarding UAP is unstoppable. So what the American and global public does with that, that's up to them," end quote. In that light, in my last video, I pinned a commenter's thought. Disclosure is less about the information being revealed, but what humanity chooses to do with it. What will we do with the revelations foretold to happen on November 13th? What will a post-November 13th world look like? Jeremy also said during this interview, and I quote, "We're going to have a different conversation after and on November 13th because we are having congressional hearings on UFOs, and the world is going to learn things they didn't know before," end quote. Now, this is a complicated, precarious situation. It's not as simple as just putting amazing witnesses on the stand and going all disclosure, hog, wild. There's intimidation and threats against those who want to go public and expose the multi-decade UFO cover-up. In the following clip, Jeremy Corbell explains this to journalist Gotti Schwartz after he's asked what kind of testimony we might see at this upcoming hearing.
Right. So we are in a crisis right now of journalism in America. And there are a lot of attempts right now to stop witnesses, first-hand whistleblowers to UAP, from testifying. Now, we also have people fighting to allow for that. So the world, one way or the highway, is going to catch up really soon about UAP.
Let's call this catch-up that Corbell references the rising tide of cosmic revelations. What will the story be in a post-disclosure world? It will likely be as deep as the sea and as wide as the sky, unfolding over many years and through ever-deepening layers of complexity. But one unavoidable component of it will be that there were powerful people and interests determined to keep the American public and the world completely ignorant of their place in the universe, which ties into what Jeremy just said about efforts to stop witnesses, first-hand whistleblowers of UAP, from testifying. On October 8th, Ross Coulthart asked Michael Schellenberger why there's a cover-up of UFOs in the first place. Here's what he had to say.
Why do you believe, what does your source tell you? What are your sources telling you about why the cover-up? I mean, I lie in bed at night and think, why don't the US government just come out? Why doesn't Joe Biden just walk to a lectern in the White House and say, ladies and gentlemen, people of America, people of the world, we are not alone? Why the lie?
Well, yeah, not only that, but it's also like, why the persistence of the lie over such a long period of time? I mean,
he goes on to explain why past and present US presidents haven't spilled the beans on the true nature of UAP.
You know, everybody has the same set of reasons. There's some sense in which there's just fear of public panic, and I think there's some reason to worry about that. I also think it can be overstated. I think that there's some genuine concern that these technologies are an advantage to the United States against our earthly adversaries. That's I find that plausible. And then I think the other more troubling, conclusion would be that there's some bad things that have been going on as part of this. I'll use the word cover-up, because that's what it is. There's some troubling behaviors that have gone along with the cover-up. I mean, David Grush is on the record saying that people have been killed. I don't have evidence of that. That's not my claim. I'm saying that's what he said. I've certainly seen other people say it.
I agree with the 3 reasons Schellenberger provided as to why the UFO cover-up has persisted so darn long. I would add that there's also concern about the US government being sued for violating antitrust laws by giving aerospace corporations unfair advantages, allegedly through access to non-human intelligence artifacts for analysis, reverse engineering, and ultimately technological innovation. Indeed, David Grush himself spoke about this during his June 11th interview with Ross Coulthart.
Overall, the government has been the custodian of a lot of this, right? And they'll hand receipt it out to a cleared defense contractor to do some analysis, which I find highly unethical. You have basically a sole source arrangement, and you allow certain private corporate elements to look at this, develop a potential insight, and then sell it back to the government for profit. And I think that's totally unethical.
As you can see, the UFO cover-up is driven by much more than just supposed fear of society panicking. Here, Schellenberger goes on to explain that he wrote an entire article about UFO witnesses getting harassed over the decades.
I did do a whole story last year on UAP witnesses and whistleblowers reporting threats, including death threats, not just in the United States, but around the world. I find those witnesses credible. I don't think that you allege that the government, I don't think that sane people allege that the US government or government officials had threatened them unless it had occurred. So I worry that there has been some bad behaviors that have gone along with a cover-up, and that the various folks that are still in what is sometimes referred to as the legacy program or these unacknowledged special access programs, that they're worried about some consequence for themselves.
This ties directly into what Jeremy Corbell said earlier, that there are a lot of attempts right now to stop witnesses, first-hand whistleblowers of UAP, from testifying. You can't boil down the reason for the cover-up to just one cause. However, the sheer tenacity that the US government and other governments have displayed in keeping this hush-hush is puzzling. It seems obsessive and bizarre, kind of like Golem's obsession with the ring of power. It makes you wonder if there truly have been agreements made with non-human intelligence, as UFO whistleblower David Grush has conveyed might be going on. But there's another component to the UFO cover-up that isn't talked about enough. The deep hole the US government and other governments have dug for themselves. They've covered it up for so long that any rational or reasonable path to disclosure has vanished. In fact, from their perspective, disclosure may have become so dangerous that it's no longer an option. They realize how much public trust will unravel when they admit to having lied to billions of people about the most profound discovery in human history. For them, coming clean may feel like it's simply off the table. To illustrate this point, here's a clip from October 26, 2024, during a town hall event in Pennsylvania, where Elon Musk was asked about the UFO program that will be one of the key focuses of the upcoming November 13th UFO hearing.
As somebody who is directly involved in the pioneering of space travel, what is your perspective on the suppression of advanced technologies under UAP crash retrieval programs and other black projects such as Immaculate Constellation that have the potential to fundamentally change human society?
I'm not familiar with those programs, but I mean, I certainly think if there are technologies that can be helpful, the government's aware of it. We should obviously provide that technology to the people.
Elon Musk, in a display of common sense, made it clear that if the US government is aware of such advanced non-human technology, it should be shared with the public. What he ultimately meant, I believe, is that it should not be reserved solely for military contractors to exploit for military advantage, especially as the world faces an environmental crisis of pollution and degradation. In that light, Ross Coulthart conveys the following during his June 11th interview with Grush, and I quote, "And while Grush says the U.S. has gleaned some insight from these materials for military use, so much more could be done if academia and the private sector had access." Grush responds with the following after Coulthart's statement.
It's totally nuts that humanity as a whole, especially the U.S. citizenry as a whole, they're not even benefiting from broad research on this to solve propulsion, energy issues, novel material science that can improve people's quality of life. It's just totally nuts how it's been protected and inhibits progress.
How will the U.S. government ever explain to the world that they betrayed the American people's trust for decades under the guise of national security, while most of the brightest minds remained oblivious to the fact that we're not only being engaged by non-human intelligence, but that technologies and bodies have been recovered? Grush is right when he says it's totally nuts how this reality has been protected, inhibiting progress. At this point, it would be extraordinarily embarrassing for the U.S. government to admit to this wrongdoing. It's so beyond the pale. There's no room for justification anymore, and any attempt would be met with public ridicule. But it gets even worse when we consider that allegedly the UFO program Immaculate Constellation is only scratching the surface of the complexity of this cover-up.
Government has hid from Senate, from Congress, from the Gang of Eight. It's called Immaculate Constellation. And by the way, that's just top of the pyramid, big piece of the pie chart. There's more up there, and there's a lot of constellations below. So I just want to say that is a tiny thing. We are just talking about it right now because it's public, but there's a much bigger story to tell.
What will we learn in the upcoming November 13th UFO hearing? This hearing is going to happen. I don't think there's any doubt. And to help substantiate that perspective, Tim Gallaudet, former Rear Admiral, former head of NOAA, wrote on October 28th, looking forward to testifying at this. Washington correspondent for News Nation, Joe Khalil, wrote in response to Tim Gallaudet, UAP hearing in the House Oversight Committee is officially set for November 13th. We'd reported that date weeks ago, but we're told it wasn't 100% set. It now is. It'll be a joint hearing between two House Oversight subcommittees, co-chaired by Representative Grothman and Representative Nancy Mace. Both have worked on the UAP UFO issue. Witness list is not locked in yet, but retired Navy Rear Admiral and former acting director of NOAA, Gallaudet Tim, says he's testifying. And then Chris Torres wrote, any idea how long a hearing we will be looking at? How much time did they schedule it for? Joe Khalil, don't know yet, likely a few hours. Tina F. wrote, guess we can watch it on C-SPAN. Joe Khalil, you should be able to. I assume it'll garner enough attention. You can probably watch it live on News Nation too. Anarcho Puppet wrote, will it be public? Can I line up to attend? Joe Khalil responded, usually these hearings have room for public seating, but not much. I remember most people who lined up in 2023 with David Grush's hearing didn't get a seat because the room filled up. I'm going to carefully read a tweet that Jeremy Corbell dropped on October 29th. I'm not going to show it. I'm just going to read it very carefully. And I'm going to give you my analysis because I think it's a significant statement. He wrote on October 29th, and I quote, nothing can stop some UFO UAP truths from coming out now, especially not me or George Knapp anymore. And it doesn't matter what Congress does, but I hope they continue to do the right thing. And if they don't, that's okay, because this literally is the job of journalists in America to tell the truth for the good of our beautiful country, even if painful. It's the only way to be strong, not just appear to be strong and actually be united. After all, we are all in this together, whether we like that fact or not. With that said, it is my hope that Congress continues to do its job and what's right for the American people, because that literally is their job. Strong and patriotic representatives of the American people, like Representative Nancy Mace said that the other day, come hell or high water, we are having UFO hearings on the November 13th, 2024. So with help from all of you, nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop that now. We will know more about UFO, UAP on or before November 13th. And then be the facts, and you have been told. So my impression is that Jeremy is privy to people that are coming forward no matter what to provide information to the public. Because he said that it's going to happen even if Congress fails to do their job. And that he says, and it doesn't matter what Congress does, but I hope they continue to do the right thing. And if they don't, that's okay, because this is literally the job of journalists in America to tell the truth. So he's saying that, from what I can perceive, journalists are going to come forward with this information, even if Congress somehow fails in the upcoming November 13th hearing. And I don't even think he's necessarily suggesting that him and George Knapp will be the ones to bring this information forward. It's just that people are willing to come forward, whistleblowers, witnesses, and they're going to come forward no matter what. So if one avenue was to close, they would just go to another avenue to come forward, but they're coming forward. That is the message that Jeremy Corbell seems to be adamant about. And so according to him, new information is going to drop in the very near future that's going to inform us about the cover-up, about the UFOs in general, and it's going to change the conversation. That is how I read the situation. I will close this video with reading two of my tweets. I'm just going to read them very carefully, and this one is from October 27th, and I quote, "The UFO topic is goofy and absurd, and I have no issue saying this. Anyone who tries to make it exclusively super serious might be missing the point. Of course, it's nuanced. People are likely being abducted and injured by these phenomena, and there may be a Cold War underway with nations competing to reverse engineer non-human intelligence technologies, just as Grush and Nell have stated. The above gives it a serious tone while paradoxically revealing the absurdity of it all. Add in a 70-plus year multi-government cover-up, and you have something that seems like it could only exist in an over-the-top movie. In other words, this topic has much room for levity since it's the pinnacle of bizarre. And that's how I feel. And I think that's, maybe one of the reasons I'm a little goofy and quirky when I talk about this topic, because it's just absurd. It really is genuinely absurd. And it's hard for me to take it seriously sometimes in some ways. And yet I would still concede that the probability is high that there is a non-human intelligence in our biosphere and governments are covering it up. And that suggests to me that the UFO has come to teach us nuance, whether that's its intention or not. But as part of the universe unfolding before us, it has come to teach us nuance. Because on the one hand, the UFO topic is absolutely absurd in so many ways, whether it's the men in black or government agencies lying about the topic, threatening, somebody's threatening witnesses not to come forward. The U.S. government and other governments have been downplaying the phenomena for decades. Allegedly, people are getting abducted. People are allegedly receiving telepathic messages from these entities. Allegedly, some people are getting healed of disease and injury in rare instances when they encounter these phenomena. There's a crash retrieval program. Sometimes the craft crash, sometimes they land allegedly, and then either the entities will be in the craft dead, or they have abandoned the craft. The suggestion seems to be that the craft are being given as donations to various governments. It just goes on, and it's absolutely bizarre. And yet simultaneously, it seems fair to say that it could be argued it's the most important topic in the world, in some respects, not in all respects, and the most important scientific mystery in some respects. So you have this juxtaposition of absurdity and seriousness at the same time, and to such extreme degrees that it kind of makes me insane. This will be the second tweet that I wanted to share with you from October 29th, and I quote, "The biggest architect of the coming soon dynamic in ufology is the phenomenon itself. We have CE5ers telling us they'll bring disclosure. Great. I'm looking forward to that. Can't wait. We also have efforts from within the government to get the truth out. Who's really behind this dynamic? Let's be objective about that," end quote. So I see people getting mad at the coming soon dynamic. They get mad at Lou Elizondo. They get mad at Jeremy Corbell. They get mad at me. They get mad at the upcoming hearing that's slated to happen on November 13th. They're criticizing people for quote unquote dangling a carrot and giving the impression that disclosure is always just right around the corner. And yet they're missing the elephant in the room, that the culprit here is mostly the phenomenon itself, not the human beings that are fallible and trying to get to the bottom of the phenomenon itself. How can you not see that? The phenomenon has been stringing us along for decades. It allows itself to be seen and perceived, and yet it doesn't entrench itself adequately enough so that all of our institutions have concrete proof that it is here and that it is real, while simultaneously allowing governments to snatch up this smoking gun evidence. How it accomplished that, I don't know. Is it some kind of a coincidence? Is it intentional? These are interesting conversations to have. But within the framework of the tweet of mine that I just read to you, how are you going to get mad at people like Corbell or people like me when it's the phenomenon itself that facilitates this dynamic to begin with? At the very minimum, be 50% angry at the phenomenon and 50% angry at fallible people. But yet, who ultimately has the solution to stop this disclosure is just around the corner mentality? The phenomenon does. Who has the capacity to put an end to government corruption's handling of the UFO topic so that it stops lying and obfuscating to the people? The phenomenon does. And yet you seem, I'm not generalizing, but some people seem so focused on the human beings trying to explore and understand this topic, fallible human beings at that, just as I am, that they ignore the elephant in the room, which is the phenomenon itself that leads to this dynamic. And I think that is highly imbalanced. So I'm very excited for the upcoming hearing. As I told you before, it is my understanding Corbell is saying that even if something like this, even if this upcoming hearing did not have good witnesses, we're still going to get the truth, and it's still coming out because he knows, this is my reading, I don't have direct knowledge of this, but he knows people, he knows high-level witnesses that are going to come forward regardless. Almost as if the trajectory has been set, people have had enough, and the truth is coming out, and frankly, it appears the cover-up is coming to an end. I don't know how long it's going to take, but the process is certainly in motion. And we are making more progress than we have in the past. I know a lot of people are resistant to that idea, but I think that's the truth. And that's the way I see it. So we got about 2 weeks left before the hearing, and we have less time before Investigation Alien comes out on Netflix, which is George Knapp's production. He's the main character in it. I will tell you that I did watch the MGM Plus docuseries, the first episode. I thought it was very good. I thought it was objective and reasonable, but there was nothing new in it. It was more of like a very professional synopsis of what's taken place up until this point. It'd be an amazing movie to watch, or series within a docuseries to watch, for those that are not familiar with what's taken place. And we'll wrap this video up now. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You could become a patron. You could become a YouTube member. You could give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities can be accessed in the description box below, or you can just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in this next episode. Special thanks to all YouTube members, patrons, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.